Okay, guys. So all of you that can turn your camera on, we will really appreciate that. It's kind of painful to talk to, to a name. So we are here in our last jury with the client of the first year. We are doing like this course called Ecologies of the Artificial Post-Carbon Escape in collaboration with the Strelka KB. I want to thank Nabi Aksamov for joining us today again with CURE, the Center for Urban Resilience and Ecology, and also the rest of the people at Arkady Molosov, which you already know. Also, Dasha Paramonova will be probably joining us ASAP, and also Guillermo Correa-Decker, that you also met him in the last session that we had. So, as ever, we're gonna go in the same way. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today, guys. It have been 2 very tough weeks, these last ones. So, but actually the work that the students have produced, we're really happy with it. So hopefully you will be absolutely pleased with it. So thank you so much for joining us. For the student, the rules as always. So we will go with the different groups. We will start first with the station, then we will move on to the factory, and then the last side will be the GS1. So you already know the groups, but we will be naming it before you start. Yes, we will ask you to please, turn on your camera and speak to it and present yourself, your name and your group, the three of you, the four of you, if you are four. And then we will share the screen and we play the video. After the video, if you think it is relevant to make, any comments or assumption about your project, we really encourage you to do it. And after that, we will have, some feedback from the client that we will go one by one through the different groups. So hopefully we will be able to do this in the 2 hours time frame that we have. So that's it. Thank you so much to everyone for being here. And maybe we can start with the first group, which, if I'm not wrong, is the number 1 in the Katsky railway station. Are you guys here?
Yes.
Yes, we're here.
Can you introduce yourselves and then we play the video?
Yeah, sure. I'm Marta, and
This is Berta and Reyes. Yes.
And our project is called the Internet of Plants, a series of cyber for ecologies of decay. And maybe in the video we can first and maybe make some comments later.
Welcome to the virtual reality of our proposal, the Internet of Plants, a series of cyber protocols for ecologies of decay. You've entered our reality, which is not but one possibility among an infinite of alternative futures. It's open to subversion, and as such, it can be altered and hacked by any of our visitors. Feel free to make it your own. Our cities have been shaped and reorganized around the myth of the availability of abundant energy, first through carbon mining and later replaced by renewable resources. These dynamics have given form to new architectural typologies and urban growth patterns that sustain energy-intensive ways of life. As long as its core is constructed by carbon form, the built environment as we know it will be fundamentally unable to supplant the current energy paradigm or to address the climate crisis. As a result, we must reconsider the link between architecture and climate by exploring the reciprocity between energy and built form. A way of overcoming this cultural and architectural legacy is by recognizing the spatial expression of carbon energy in order to establish a process of architectural degrowth. We propose a series of interventions, protocols, that induce and accelerate the decay state of the station, understanding ruins as a catalyst space for the non-human living. As a first analysis, a material catalog is developed, locating and analyzing each of the station's construction materials, as well as extrinsic and non-human strategies of degradation. The anticipatory ruination of such spaces comes from an artificial intelligence that unchains a series of protocols of degrowth through data collection of the station's state, an Internet of Plants. Overcoming the nature-technology dichotomy, the tentacular algorithm functions as an autonomous system inside the station, establishing alliances between the human and non-human. A practical experimentation is built as a simulation of one of these network's nodes. We propose an open-ended collection of 9 protocols following the same structure. They originate from an early required human intervention and develop as autonomous processes in synergy with the IA. We understand protocols as mechanisms without apparent physicality that have the ability to transform space without defining the final result, but only the necessary steps to reach it, enabling, ordering, and prescribing certain actions to achieve a result that, although it has been planned, leaves room for the unforeseen, the contingent, and its conscious manipulation during the process. The programmed decay of the station is organized along a timeline that encompasses the atmospheres required by each protocol, as well as non-human comfort, therefore redefining human comfort. At the same time, those constructed atmospheres determine an array of possible programs that can take place in the station in different phases. Ruins are not failed buildings, but ecologies that offer reproductive and creative opportunities, spaces of in-betweenness. As such, it's a transgressive space that is no longer obliged to reproduce the normative system of the meticulously planned out city. Through the incorporation of animal, plants, insects, microorganisms, and data, the anticipatory ruination, rather than forcing a process of de-anthropization, unchains a picture of degrowth in the consumption of resources.
In the midst of a
Do you want to show anything from the mirror, or we can just stop sharing screen?
Maybe kind of zoom into like the 10 or 12 images that are there that explain
the protocols or the general image.
The general images, maybe to show an overview of what the evolution could be like by decades. These are images that show when these protocols are activated and kind of zoom into the small parts that take place. And these kind of show the evolution of the protocols by decades. And maybe, I don't know, it's kind of complex and has project has many layers. So maybe we can wait for the questions of the jury and then answer anything that has been left unclear. I don't know if Regina or Berta, you want to add anything?
Also, guys, feel free to just post the Miro link into the chat, so maybe some of the clients can navigate through it while you explain it, or while they comment, or while we showcase the video. So not only for this group, but also for the next group, remember to post the Miro link.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so do you want to add something, Berta, Reggie, or Marta?
No, I think it's okay.
Okay.
Your turn, Navi.
Hi guys, thank you for the presentation. It was very nice, and I made some notes, and I have like three comments. The first one, I don't know, maybe I didn't catch something, or I don't know, maybe it's my problem, but I didn't catch the connection between the highlighted topic of the existing architecture, which is driven by the carbon economy, doesn't address the issues related to the climate change. So this was the topic, and this was like the statement of the initial part of the presentation. And then you go into your concept, and there is like not super clear connection between how your proposal addressing these issues. I mean, in the first part, you are describing the different kind of the protocols, but it's it's like something which is happened with the building, with the single building, and you don't know what happened around this building. So I don't know, this system, it's like designated to deconstruct this building, but where people live and how the society works in this case. So I don't know, maybe there is some possibility or room to make some changes, but I don't know. I think that it would be helpful if you could add this thing. And the second comment regarding the second part of the presentation, which was like with the 3D model, with the jungles inside the ruined building, and I don't know, it's look a bit contradictory because you talking about these different kind of the algorithms and machine learning centers, etc., and then you showing this ruin, and it's contradict to the concept, because you're talking about something technological, and it seems like a ruin. And so where is the center? The centers, they are existing in the same environment as this station, or this is just an exhibition of the new project? I mean, you could try to explain like more precise and more clear the background of this building, why all these manipulations are happening to this thing. And the third comment is about like the structure. So we have the statement, then we have two proposals, and then it would be logically if you could have some kind of the conclusion. I mean, what is the outcome of all this proposal and this idea? So that's it.
I think I can add a couple of things. Well, first of all, I think it's a huge jump in terms of the narrative, and it became much clearer than the last version that we saw. Although I feel like a lot of the time was spent explaining the general concept and the world building, and maybe less time was spent describing how these mechanisms are actually defining the spatial qualities. So what we saw in the mirror board might actually, basically what I think what I'm trying to say is that if the video was longer, for example, right, we could actually see some of the typologies or the scenarios under which the space would be changing. So I didn't really get the idea of the spatial qualities of the building itself. We spent some time kind of emerging into the world and maybe investigating all of the concepts and ideas and the descriptions of the mechanisms. And then it felt like the movie ended before I saw the third act, right, where I actually see the possible scenarios, where you said in the beginning, I think, that this is one of the unfolding of one of the possible scenarios. And yeah, I didn't get to see what is the connection of the visitors, who are the visitors, and how the space is actually redefined through these mechanisms in the spatial quality. Like, what is it like? Like, what is the program? And I don't know, some simple things like this. But I guess I think you probably answered all of these questions, and it's probably in the mirror board, but it was maybe missing from the end of the video. Then you described the protocols, and it seemed like it was something maybe very crucial to the whole idea. And you spent maybe a lot of time kind of using this terminology amongst yourselves and understanding it is already an established terminology. But I feel like didn't have enough time to actually get to know what exactly is the protocol you're referring to and how it's changing the final outcomes. So yeah, maybe like unfolding a little bit more the idea behind the protocols and what role they play, and showing a little bit of the spatial qualities of the building or the different scenarios. In other words, what you have in the mirror board, being unfolded in your narrative. So yeah, that's from my side. Maybe Guillermo.
Yeah, very quickly, like I agree with what Navi and Arkady were saying. Like we, as a client, we are missing a bit probably what the outcome of those protocols are. And even though I think this, for me, this is a super sexy project. Like it's from a conceptual level, it's amazing. Like you really can. I really want to see what all this DK is gonna create. But there are two little things I wanted to say in addition to agreeing with my peers. Is that I don't know how site specific is this project. It's super sexy, but I saw some. It looks for me like the plants were more in the jungle and not in Moscow. Moscow is very cold, and there is no such a thing as jungle in there. So maybe we should think about that. How site specific are we with our protocols? And then the second thing I want to say is you girls, actually, I was gonna say guys, but girls talk a lot about carbon. Sustainability is not only carbon. It's quite something else. It can be how we're using the space, for who is this space, how economic is this space, how long it is gonna work, how is it gonna work. So carbon, thinking about carbon is right, but it's not the only one. So maybe you need to open up and, okay, this is one thing, but we also have this. So how people are gonna use this place, how people, I don't know. Yeah, and I also probably agree that the video is very much focused on one thing, and I would love to see those panels that you created in the Miro board. But it's very interesting project. I like it. Congrats.
Thank you. I don't know if we have time to like kind of comment any of these questions, or if we should just jump to the next.
No, I think we can spend like a bit of time if you want to answer some of the feedback.
Okay. Well, I have some thank you for the feedback. Definitely, it's really useful to like kind of zoom out of how we see the project, because we've been into like every single detail, and having feedback from someone who's kind of seeing this for the first time. I totally understand how this can be kind of confusing or have a lot of terminology, and then we've really did spend a lot of time trying to get into like what is this dystopian future, or how does this look like, and maybe not so much time specifying in the video. I mean, like specifying what these formal outcomes or like what these protocols actually are constructed into, or how does the station look like, or how is it transformed with these protocols. Definitely that's in all of our panels in the Miro. Like we have produced that, but we kind of wanted to explain the storyline, because we thought it was important to look into that. And then to kind of the first comments, I think the technological and the natural definitely kind of merge. When I think it was Arkady said that like how does all of this artificial intelligence or all of this data work when we're kind of just showing the jungle-like scenes. It is thought out and it is produced. Maybe the final kind of 360 images are centered in some of these spaces that were that look a little bit more no, like I don't think the like the server, for example, is thought out and is planned and is in the station, but it maybe we didn't show that enough. Also, kind of the data is invisible, so like how all of the sensors work and all of the how all of the data is collected is kind of an invisible process that we did show in the drawings, but maybe not so much in the video. And about the site specificness, I think it might be a project that in general it can be applied to many other places, and it's not definitely the general line is not site specific at all. I think it's more of a kind of a statement or a kind of a manifestation of the idea of not kind of not building, but like deconstructing. And we try to make these protocols very, very, very specific to the materials of the station and the places of like the different spaces the station is conformed, so that this general kind of manifesto was applied to the station itself. Like all of the protocols have to do specifically with like all of the plants, even if the drawings don't look like it. We've like analyzed the autochthonous and local species to apply those plants there. We've even looked like if there's a protocol that has to do with termites, where these termites would be taken from, the local forests that are in the outskirts of Moscow, where we can find the termites, where like we did analyze how this all of the protocols can be very conscious where we take these resources from and where we look at that. And that's, I think, how for us, definitely, and I think for everyone in the class, sustainability does not have to do only with carbon, but it has to do with like everything else that we've talked about in the video and everything else that we had in mind working with the project. At first, we just wanted to kind of like make the link with what the name or the proposal of the class was, which was post-carbonscapes, and we kind of wanted to work from there to explain like what we're talking about. I don't know if you have anything to comment, Berta and Reggie. I think I tried to.
Girls, I will love you to continue, but we have to be, very quick in this because we have 8 more groups to go, and we're all 7.5, so we're not gonna have like a lot of time. But if you want to have like a very quick comment, go ahead.
No, I think Marta said like perfectly. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next group, which is group number 3.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Well, we're group number 3, and I'm Belen.
I'm Margareta.
I'm Yumi.
And this is our project.
Yeah, we hope you like it.
In the midst of a search for a carbon-free form, all the preconceived systems are to be re-evaluated. Our concern today is the one regarding transport. As we progress to new understandings of architecture, and the static connotation of the train stops is to be replaced with their redefinitions in regards to resources, movements in space, time schedules, and density correlations. Station is no more stationary. It is dynamic, adaptable, and unrepeatable in its shape and function, for it is in constant evolution and form finding. The spatial behaviors of the inhabitants draw multiple possibilities, and these are all taken in by the architecture. The structural support of the polychronic involves cylindrical extensions, loaded with energy, thus providing non-stop fluxes of the needed products in different shapes and scales, given the spatial necessities, which by themselves rely on the individual's movements. The secondary structural order carries directly the weight of the walkable surfaces, and it is a more flexible type, since it is meant to change their positions and create specific environments for the superior layers. The last order participates in the absorption of carbon dioxide by carrying water inside. These tubes will be covered by a PEI polymer that absorbs these molecules in the air within a low range of ambient temperatures. When these rise, the carbon dioxide is released to the water flow to the membrane, to the filter tanks, provided with Escherichia coli and Pseudomonas, which process the solution into hydrogen for the train's fuel. Elevated from the floor and layered on top of the flexible support, the membranes create different atmospheres by adapting to the lower framework, but also inherently with their play of translucency and opaqueness, as well as the temperature's fluctuation. The primary structure is braced with tensils and pulleys, while the secondary one involves elastic stripes. It is the merging of all those systems working simultaneously what allows to achieve a more complex and richer spatiality, where the architecture is able to respond and adapt to its real situation. Lastly, while playing with the existing plane surfaces, topographies are projected with piezoelectrics attached to them. These are embedded onto the surfaces and accumulate heat with pressure. Within the mere act of depressing the horizontal skin of the building, energy is produced in order to push the whole system into activation and create suitable atmospheres both in a tangible and sensible way. This whole sensible system is served by different technical locations within the lower section of the topographies. The automatic servers are also linked to the main tube structure in order to distribute supplies along the station. A number of possibilities of these spatial behaviors is set to provide a living organism that moves and shapes itself into desired and necessary forms based on the activities. Their weight equals energy, and this one is then used to secure the force of the system through the electrical capacity of the topographies. After all, resources, temperature, and humidity should be used as spaces by themselves, spaces that harvest energy due to the densities and movements. Overcoming carbon form not only means to change the way we build and live, but also our approach to aesthetic architecture conceived to last unalterable in a future that it is not.
Okay, Carlos, do you want to show anything from the middle?
Yeah, also, remember to share the link in the chat, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Marcos, thank you very much. We could see the plans and the sections. Which are, yeah, this is the plan, and yeah. Okay, so the last time we presented, we focused on exploring the atmospheres that we wanted to represent in our spaces that had to do with all these constant movements and also harvesting energy and creating a tight relationship between the user and the energy itself, or the spaces itself that would create this energy. So, and this time we tried to find this physical extent of those atmospheres and understand how can this structure really represent this whole gradient atmosphere that we wanted to generate, and how can these deformations that you can maybe see, they're a little tiny, but they're on the section part. Yeah, they're there as well, and that you could see in the video. So kind of explore this relationship between the constant movement of both trains and users, and also architecture. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you're done presenting, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we comment?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I wanted to, well, first of all, I think, I don't even remember seeing the project last time, so I think it says a lot about the progress that was made from the last version to this version. And again, like, it's a huge leap, like the last project, in the narration of the narrative, right, with the images and the kind of script and all of that. But I think there is a link missing between your intro, where you say a lot of interesting things, how the station is no longer static, it's a dynamic thing, and so on and so forth. This is like, you have me, and then we very quickly jump into your the prototype, or I don't refer to the prototype as you refer to the prototype. I mean, like, I know you have your prototypes as like the physical models, but I mean like the actual structure of that. I think there should be some kind of diagram, animated diagram or something, explaining a little bit more the functions of that, right? How it actually creates energy a little bit more or developed than the level that we saw in the video. Because I think, again, for you, it might be very clear. And I feel like all of the answers are there. And it's a very interesting, actually, proposition. And it spatially could be very interesting, like this dynamic form and how it's changing and it's producing energy. But there's a lot of questions that I had, like how it's actually doing that. That was missing for me. And yeah, like a simple diagram explaining how the energy is generated. Yeah, like explained in this simple form, that could help me understand. And then also you were saying how it's changing its form. That was also kind of the explanation of that, what kind of shapes it could take in terms of it, like it could be anything, or it has certain rules under which it changes, and what kind of space it creates, like in this form or that form. Maybe the space, the program of the space can change depending on the position of that structure, right? Dynamic structure. Does it mean that I can no longer enter this room because the ceiling has collapsed, or it becomes a different room, right? Is it just changing and it's kind of in my way as a visitor's experience, or it's actually changing the space in terms of it's being used? That would be something interesting to kind of dive into. But I feel like maybe you have all of these answers, so you just need to add some of them. And the crucial point is that moment between when, right before you start introducing the structure, explaining in a simple diagram form what the structure actually does, and maybe showing the prototypes, the physical prototypes that you actually made, using them in that moment, right? Using that physical prototype and explaining it maybe with that model, and diagramming it more in the abstract space, right, in vacuum, and then applying it into that space, which is the train station. And then saying like, look, it can be changing, but it doesn't mean that it's just sort of like a lava lamp that is just changing for no reason. It actually creates more interesting spaces that are used in one way in the morning and used in a different way in the evening, or like from season to season or something like that. And by explaining like the rules under which it creates the energy, maybe some questions that I have can be answered. For example, are you sure that this energy generation is more sustainable than any other way in that world? Yeah, so something along those lines. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I agree with Nabi in terms of the storytelling, but I have to admit that I'm really enjoying watching all this prototype working. I think that this part is like done very nice. And the only thing I'm a bit missing, yes, I think that it could be an opposite to the previous presentation. In the previous presentation, we have a lot of like a narration about the world and the environment, and a bit lack of the proposal. And here we have like completely very detailed explained the proposal. This works this way and this, but we don't know what happened around and why this building should do these things which it's doing in the video presentation. And that's it. And I don't know. And maybe when you're trying to. Yeah, I think if you could try to explain more precise the purpose of this thing, okay, it's production and energy, but there's really a lot of things that could do the same. And okay, it's very nice way to produce energy to modify this building related to the humidity, temperature, and other conditions, but it also should be something like very purposeful and very useful, explaining why it's doing it this way. So that's it.
Okay, I will give two very fast comments because these guys talk a lot. First of all, it was very nice when at the beginning you said station is no longer stationary. Then you got me. That's okay. Well, I want to know what this means. What does that mean? That it is flexible? I think Nabi also asked it. I don't know if this is going to be moving or if it's going to be changing positions. It was not clear for me if how was the final output of that, or it was just fixed, or it's going to be moving. That was a question for me. And then the second question I have, or comment I have, is that we need to be very careful, and I think the guys also hint this, and in what we use to create architecture, because at the end we need to create spaces and we need to give them a reason to be in that way. So the data we use to create a space needs to be it needs to make sense that we are using that data. If we are going to use movement, we need to reason why we're gonna use movement to design the space. So is this movement gonna give us a better performance or not? That's the question I have. So if the movement is a starting point or the temperature is a starting point, we need to understand why that's a good starting point. And if it's just a random one, we need to also understand that it's a random one because we are trying to create something new. But if it's it has a purpose that we are using movement or temperature of climate or wherever, we need to understand why that's better than other starting point. That's the thing that we should understand. But it was very nice.
Thank you very much for all your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we move on to the last group of the station? Number 13, are you guys here? And please remember to share the video.
Yes, we're here.
Good, go ahead.
Well, we worked in Kivskaya station and we understand it as a living organism. And we propose different things. One is an alternative to the combustion-powered vehicles with a new infrastructure of delivery. Another is understanding the fluxes of and the variability of densities of the station. A way of making those spaces of transit habitable with different programs. And finally, we try to reuse and recycle the waste of the underground, the trains that get like old, and we make a multi-programmatic tower with those. And it is a different scales transformation of the station, trying to change the mobility, delivery, the coexistence, and the recycling of the station.
Understanding, as a being of continuous flows, roamed by thousands of trains and millions of people, and centering the metro network.
Super beats on this track.
Yeah. The Kivskaya station stands up with a bunch of opportunities that inevitably lead us in a different interventions. Taking advantage of this dynamic condition, the metro has, and understanding the station as the vertical connection with the surface, the first intervention appears. A proposal that plans an alternative to the actual delivery system with combustion-powered vehicles. It's a system that works with the flow of people, and takes advantage of the train routes throughout the city. It uses the wagons by transforming some of them for the transport of packages. An infrastructure is proposed. It consists of a square section tubes, the size for a standard delivery package. It transports the packages from the wagons to the surface, from the wagons to the surface, and vice versa. This tubular infrastructure is able to lead us to the next project, a project which interest is to make habitable this place of passage. It uses the delivery tubes for installing a series of gadgets that have the power to include and change programs in the subway spaces. It finds the opportunity based on the times of the station and variations of density of people. The mobilier hangs from the tube and creates a variety of temporal programs. A market, a coffee shop, and an art gallery, for example, can happen at different hours in a day. Also, remark the interventions of video mapping that complement the exhibition program and have the power to change the visual condition of the place. It pretends to create a different station every day. From another side, there's an imminent decay of the existing museum next to the station. Its actual use is to gather an exhibition for the future new line of the Moscow metro. This is key for the development of the next project, the transformation of this museum into a workshop that can extract wagons from the lanes and change its usage for making them run again as delivery trains. Also, in the new workshop, trains can be repaired or discard the old trains. This last project proposes to recycle these old trains into a wagon cemetery outside. The wagons build a multi-program tower a place to be and not for consuming. It dialogues with intervention outside of the station. The wagons are transformed to attend to structural and habitability questions, transforming into structural beings that can be piled up, maintaining the existing elements such as doors and windows. The tower organizes around 2 communication blocks that have the function to include the main installations of the building. Like this, it appears a tower made up of underground waste that grows against the enormous shopping center at the other side of the street. It's not only a constructive solution, it proposes a new space that has a symbolic transforming condition in a recycling level in a post-carbon era. It is pretended to make a transformation of the station in different scales, taking into account questions like mobility, delivery, coexistence and recycling, mobility, delivery, coexistence and recycling. These interventions work on the Kievskaya station, but they are examples of a system that could reach the whole metro network, working in different stations throughout the city. Throughout the city. Throughout the city. Throughout the city.
Okay, guys, do you want to show anything from the Miro?
And maybe the views, there are some views, some key views of the places.
Which ones? These last ones?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to comment anything, David or Javi.
Maybe you can jump into the comments of the client, and then you guys may answer after that if you find that more useful.
No, I think that I only could say that I really enjoyed this presentation. It's a very nice way to present things, you know, with music and the video, and in a very, very dynamic way. And I don't know, you know, I only think that I missed a bit. This project for me, it looks like the most feasible because it's not like looking to changing paradigm, you know, this kind of the feasible post-carbon future. We still have the same behavior. We like to consult things, we like to deliver things and ride trains, but this is just like a post-carbon trains. Yeah. And the trains are the same old trains, but they are post-carbons, and yes, that's it.
I think I would love to present like this once to the client, you know, where it could be a very formal meeting, and then I just check the music, and then we just start discussing the project. Though I think it was fun. It was definitely very dynamic and not boring.
Shall we answer, or is it okay? No, I think that we thought a lot about this, about like how when with the post-carbon era como like frame, obviously it is difficult to propose something that changes or not the paradigm, but I think that the aim was to build in positive an alternative to the like not understanding that we want to live in cities without combustion vehicles, and we have to reduce all that transit, and having the transport network that the metro is, which is great. How can we take advantage of that? Like, I think it was like that was the aim.
Well, I think I honestly I had to be very focused on trying to get what you guys were proposing, because you were proposing in such a fun way that you might get lost in just the music and the rap and shit. So I had to really very focus on that. I think that there are 2 ways of dreaming in life in general. Like, one is you dream and you dream far away, and then you dream about what's the 2 projects before were a bit more far away. We're dreaming far away, and they were really radically changing what we are doing with the station. Your dream was more like a today's dream, and you put all your imaginative effort on how we're going to present this today's dream, which is fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but because actually for us to get to that post-carbon era, we need both. We need both type of people, both type of projects. So I think that that's fine. again, what I just said, like the video was very fun, but if you are trying to sell this to a client, it might get very well received or very bad received. So this is a risk I think you were perfectly conscious that you were taking. I'm buying.
It's kind of like a new age Bjarke Ingels, you know. It's like I think
pop culture architecture.
Yes, next architectural projects will be presented at raves, you know, like where you have like a DJ set and then for a second I thought you were gonna rap there, and it sounded
I think that it was started from rap beat, or it sounds like.
But still, I feel like I still don't know a lot of the project because I was so distracted by all of the fun parts of the presentation that I would like to. But I feel I still saw that there's a lot of like interesting ideas there, and I still need to go back and maybe rewatch that. But now with like a more critical eye. But you know, like this presentation, you don't feel like bored to go back to. You know, you want to watch it a couple of times.
Just one last comment I had. Like one thing I think is very interesting, and probably the project should be like really be centered on that is, and we are missing that a lot in cities. How can we program the underground? How can we program the tunnels? Sometimes when we do city planning and architecture, we forget we only design things on top of the surface of the earth, and everything that's happened below is ugly, it's not programmed, or it's just a service area. And I think one of the things you propose with this kind of delivery system and the little tubes that you were putting on the underground is programming the under levels. And I think that's for me, that's the key and the most interesting point of the project, to be honest. So probably you should develop that a bit further.
Well, thank you so much for the comment. Guys, I don't know if you want to answer, like a quick answer to some of that, or we can move on to the next slide.
I mean, just to say thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Really good job. I also like it a lot.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next slide, which is the levels above factory. And the next group is group number 2. Are you guys here?
Yes, good evening.
Go ahead.
Well, good evening to everyone. In this video, we projected some of the ideas that we find of our interest and believe will also be of yours. Last time we presented, we took considerable annotations that result quite fertile. Some of these appreciations were about the use of the pre-existences of the bread factory, and we kept the foundations in order to organize all the programs coexisting there. And well, we found out that keeping these pre-existences make better our model, and now our proposals, we think that it helps develop new narratives about death, production, factories, and the architectural escapes that we want to project in the future. And hope you enjoy it.
The project proposes the integration of a public green space in Moscow's metropolitan area in the form of an ecological cemetery. For the design of this large space, overlapping systems throughout the plot and its pre-existing facilities are proposed as a way of attacking Anthropocene materiality. The project begins with the ruins of the late urban capitalism. The building's foundations are left as a monument to its own death, but also to project new space. Simultaneously, the works begin to coexist with the burials. A new train line branch comes into a loading and unloading area. In this area, the debris from other architectures are disposed of. After that, they are redirected to the Waste Management Center, where they are transformed into gabions. The left debris is used to create a topography of mounds that house the tombs. The main elements are pavements, gabions, and funeral bulbs, which can form a constructive system. A system of ditches and pipelines will be installed, solving the problem of contaminated water, not only cleaning it, but also creating a self-maintaining green space. This local green space will thus contribute to improve the problem of air pollution in the city. As today's cities are paved, soils are not permeable and the phenomena of heat island is generated. In the post-carbon city, soils must regain their role in the hydrological cycle, which has been interrupted with the serious consequences that this entails. Droughts, flooding, and water pollution are directly associated with the properties of geological soil. Recovering its properties involves regenerating an erodible, evolutionary, and adaptive soil. This means adapting to one of the main effects of the Anthropocene era and reversing it. We will create a topography with the debris of the building's facades, covering them with an erodible temporal pavement, which will subsequently give way to the regenerative soil, fertile. The tree roots will support the granulometry of the substrate, preventing landslides. A re-evaluation of the pre-existences might lead to a model that counters the overly controlled, labor-centered, exploitative and expired architecture. The proposal helps develop new narratives about death, production and architectural scapes that fosters community experimentation, new role models and post-carbonscapes constellations.
Okay, girls, you asked me to show this this drawing. Can you hear me?
If you, Marcos, if you can put the other panel, the second one.
Okay.
Well, here in this first picture that Marcos showed, you can see an example of organization of one of the funeral mounds with a burial chamber, and in this global plan, you can see how we use the pre-existences and the foundations of the old factory, and the mounds and the waste management center, that is this central and circular structure. And I think that's everything. We would like to hear your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of comments, I don't know, maybe ideas regarding this project. I don't think, I have a sense that in the nutshell, the concept of this project, not about their burial and other things, which were shown there or stated there, but mostly it's, for me, it seems like a project for the restoration, like in a way to mitigate different kind of the issues related to the climate change and other things. And in this case, since we're talking about how to mitigate climate change, how to restore soils, all these proposals, they looks a bit too complex. You know, if you want to absorb some CO2, you better restore some wetland in the Moscow Oblast or something like this. And here we see like a very complex and technological process, and not very clear from what this is driving it. And the second thing, I don't know why it's maybe it could be a part of topic if you have an opportunity to work on with this topic further. Maybe you could try to think about on the socialist heritage of this site, because there was a topic about the late urban capitalism, and this site, this is like a dramatically opposite, because this is what the constructivist building, like the architecture for the socialist future, and now you haven't this sense at all. So this is the second one. And the third one, the last part of the video is related about the cemetery. And this looks like it's totally out of this presentation, because firstly, you are talking about this restoration, different technologies, which could be implemented about the construction of the building, and then you are talking about the cemetery, but it's not clear why you're referring to it or how it's connected to the whole topic.
Yeah, it seemed like there were a few different concepts trying to work live together, and maybe they not necessarily kind of blended nicely, but kind of like folded into each other. The idea with the cemetery is an interesting idea, and it's already kind of quite quite strong.
Self-sufficient.
Well, yeah, the idea is self-sufficient. Yes. Well, maybe it's just sufficient. Yeah, and it was quite strong. And it's from the beginning. If you kind of give the idea of that this is going to be a cemetery. It's like why, no matter what, like this is going to be a cemetery. And we're going through kind of post-carbon cemetery and all of this, then kind of own this idea and then just, focus just on that maybe. But I felt like along some parts of it, or along the way, it becomes less important, and there's another idea then that arises, right, with the surfaces and hydrological cycle. Maybe it, like, you can mention hydrological cycle or it's part of the story just as a supporting thing, not as something as strong or the same level as the concept of this is a cemetery now. It's a new type of cemetery. So yeah, maybe if it's going to be a cemetery, embrace that, and then show us, well, there's a lot of different issues arise when you talk about cemeteries. So maybe address them as well, and how the cemetery becomes a public space. And it's interesting, I think maybe we spoke about that, how like the first public spaces were actually cemeteries as well. And then they became kind of scary places after the parks came around. So like this idea of coming back to the cemetery as the new age public space could be interesting. But I don't know, like there was also landslides mentioned. I don't think there's landslides in Moscow because you don't have mountains or like the hills that would experience landsliding, unless it's some different world where we have mountains in the Moscow. Well, like it's a different, it's like Last of Us future. Yeah. Guillermo?
Yeah, no, I think I was gonna comment mostly what you guys were saying. Like I had fun listening to this kind of concept, ruin of capitalism in Moscow. This is a funny one. And then, yeah, I have the same thing. I'm just gonna use Spanish saying like, que mucha barca poco aprieta. I had the feeling that you all had a lot of super interesting things, but the way you were telling them, it looks like there was not one main topic on the project. And for me, if I've watched the video and I have to think now, I think like you talk about waste, recycling, and you talk about death. So it's at the end it's a cemetery where you create some kind of system that is going to help to recycle waste. I think that's already quite interesting, as Navi was saying. Like it has a lot of power. Like if we say, okay, we're trying to recycle from our buried people. So it's super interesting. Just make that interesting. That's what you need to do, and that's all. I mean, it's already powerful enough. So it's just, for me, I'm not so worried about the project being too dispersed, but I think it's just about a matter of how you tell a story. That's what I would say.
And then also maybe one more comment about the scales. Maybe you can talk about different scales, right? If you talk about cemetery, there's already different scales involved. Cemetery as a territory, and then individual graves as a module almost, right? So it's almost asking to be a modular design in some kind of a bigger structure, a bigger space, unless it's one big grave, you know.
Yeah, and also these horizontal layers, because you bury the person up on the another person. They're going back and you dig out the deep one.
There's a layering system,
Yeah,
there's
layering
a scale.
system.
Yeah, there's like, I feel like if you're gonna approach a cemetery, like embrace that, and there's a lot of, so the questions that will be left in the end is just the ethical questions about the cemetery and the burials in general, not about the methodology and the typologies and the architecture that you established of this new cemetery, right? But now we have the questions about how does it, well, not necessarily maybe how does it work, but maybe it's unclear. Some of the elements were not as clear. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your notes.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is group number 4.
Yes, hi, good evening. Well, as you said, we are group number 4. We are Cristina Feito, which is, we are all here.
Hi.
And Alex, Alejandro Romero.
Hi.
And myself. So now we think that the video pretty much sums up the project, so we hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
We first contacted the site by understanding its weather conditions and solar analyses. We developed studies about buildings' heat loss and the shadow casting inside the plot limits. These analyses allowed us to develop an improved floor plan that minimizes shadows casted by the pre-existing buildings and maximizing the floor surface with direct sunlight. Thanks to these modifications, the floor area of the floor increased by 5% with no building materials needed. The slopes, heights, and orientations of this new soil allowed us to locate crops and aromatic plants in the better location inside of Kleb Zabid. However, given the harsh winter conditions of Moscow and the late improvements in farming techniques, we developed an infrastructure of hydroponic, aquaponic, and aeroponic vertical farms and research labs for the further developing of these innovative techniques. The towers act like huge laboratories of food production and research. In order to feed the whole project with water and the geothermal plant for the conditioning of different programs, we developed a prototype that collects rainwater and introduces it into the water circuit of these organisms. These umbricals vary their form due to the weight of the water collected, creating a variable space beneath them where thermal baths and bars for the visitors are located. 11 of these artifacts are located around the baths and connected by a flexible light enclosure that increases or decreases its height according to the pluviometric variations. Beneath the ground and connecting all the programs located at the plot, we designed a system of water collection, wastewater treatment, geothermal-powered air conditioning, and clean water supply. These complex networks that we developed supplies leisure-related spaces as well as within the plot. The pools and the baths of the hot springs are constantly inside these nets of circulating water, also supplying the aquaponic farms located up in the towers. Later on, the crops collected can be delivered to the city by a logistics center that connects the plot to Moscow by the railway. Apart from the mentioned eco-farming and the water treatment facilities, the project contains programs for the possible human visitors with a variety of facilities such as a rare book library and an open rooftop located in the pre-existing main building or a hotel. Rather than an architectural project, Playing God is conceived as a functioning organism, where new ways of understanding the land and its use are being developed. Here, the land, the rainwater, as well as heat gains and losses of the pre-existing structure all add value and functional details to the project as a whole.
Okay, guys, you asked me to show this drawing, right?
Yes, okay. Oh, I can see it. Okay, yes, in this actonometric, it's actually explained, if you have the link, like the location of the crops we talked about, depending on the topography, and also inside the towers, that for the aquaponics, hydroponics, and hydroponics. And also the systems of the water that we collect and then recirculate into the circuit, like, or not missing any water. But yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, it's quite clear, the concept and the idea. The only thing is that you begin with the sequence of the kind of conditions that drive the earthworks, as I understand, right? You're kind of creating this landscape artificial landscape, and then you kind of bring us through the sequence, and it's kind of implying that I'm going to explain you step by step what is happening, right? And then all of a sudden you show the tower that was not explained at all, and I'm kind of under the, if I didn't see this project before, I'm like, where does that tower come from? You know, like we were kind of taking steps and it seemed like I missed some steps, and then you explain the tower through the prototype. So I think you need to explain that footage with the tower before, with the prototype, before you show any image of the tower as the building. And then again, the comment similar to one of the previous ones with the train station, you have this missing link where a lot, well, in general, I think like it's a general comment also, a lot of the diagrams that you're showing is different views of your 3D model, or different sections that you're cutting in the Rhino and moving back and forth, or like rotating. The diagrams that you're sort of missing are the ones where you export this make 2D of your model and then show us how does the water travel through the structure, where is it distributed, you know, what is it used for, and things like this. Like that was missing, and I think this is the link that is missing, where you explaining the prototype through the model, the physical model, which is awesome and great, and a lot of projects do not have physical prototypes, but you also need to add on top of that, what a lot of other projects do have is simple diagrams with simple line work that explaining us what is coming from which tube and where does it go and what is it and why do you need that. Something like, I don't know, very briefly, but at least it's like this missing link that explains us or justifies the existing of that umbrella as a tower. And then there was a moment where we had different parts of the building lighting up in different colors. And I'm assuming that is referring to different programs, but there was no legend to go along with those colors. So I'm guessing what this color means or that color means. And I know you probably were thinking that it's in the text of the voiceover, but the voiceover was moving so fast, so I couldn't, you know. So like if you are gonna show, if you're gonna color the blocks of the building, depending on what is happening inside of the building, give us a legend or something also. I know it's not cool maybe to have a legend anymore. It's more about the abstract, you know, but this is just a little, like, I feel like this project is actually kind of, regardless of its being very futuristic looking, I don't know what's the right word, it still seems like a very doable project, actually. Yeah. It explains why there's a prototype, it explains what it does. So if anything, it can be a structure that maybe not on that big of a scale, but on a smaller scale, but it still like seems like you can actually build, you know, and it actually functions and you justify all of that. But some of that explanation is missing, and I'm just kind of remembering the last time I saw the project, and I'm putting the missing links together in my mind. So by just adding a few things that will kind of stitch it together, some of the jumps, that leaps that you're making in the narrative, it will become more clearer, and you will just not make it better, but you will reveal how good it is. Like, let's say, like, let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I thank you for the presentation. I agree with Nabi, and I don't know, I only want to mention one thing, you know, I think what one of the advantage of this project could be highlighted a bit and to make it more interesting, and I don't know, like, yeah, more interesting maybe. Not in terms of changing the project, but in terms of the narration. You know, I think that there is no like physical connection between the site and the project. I mean, this like structures could grow everywhere, and I think that could be the exact the advantage, because you could tell that this is the model structure and this is kind of the typical solutions where you could apply in like living blocks or somewhere where the people need for fresh water, food, and public spaces. So maybe you could try to think of it in this way too.
Yeah, and related to that, I have a comment that it seems that the shape of these umbrellas, if you guys let me call them this way, is related to the position they have in the building, because they have this. You have the bigger one, you have the smaller one. It's something you guys need to think about if the technique is dependent of the position of these umbrellas, or of the shape is going to be driving the project. So are we driven by what is more efficient, what is the better performance, or are we driving the project by what is more beautiful, or what is more site specific? That's a question that you guys need to ask yourself. And then again, a bit following what Navi was saying is, before we were seeing projects that were more conceptual, and sometimes you get a bit lost, so you have to talk about the concept. But in this one, you get very, let's say, pragmatic. So now you can ask real questions. It's like, and how does the circularity work with these umbrellas? What that you are producing, you say that you put in the tray and you put it away, but how is the program helping that elements to have a better social environment, for example, or how the program interactions are working, or how the hydroponics is helping the aquaponics and so again, as Navi was saying, I'm missing a bit of, okay, we got into this super detailed design where everyone is understanding, so explain it. So don't be afraid of giving the client, so us, the output of what you're doing, because that's something that happens sometimes when you try to be very futuristic. You are afraid of giving a forecast. Go and give it, because maybe with that forecast we get more connected to the project.
Thank you very much for the feedback.